Welcome to the Fisher Protocol. I'm Ethan. Today joining me is Scott Smith, webmaster of the hypertext Who at thewhonet. Tom couldn't be here when my co-host Tom, who we kind of met, I worked at a guitar store and he came in and we were just connected as Who people. They sent the Who people to me to sell them guitars, and I usually did. And I've just stayed in touch with him about the Who ever since then. But I'm only telling you that because I told him I was talking to you, and he was like, "Wow, really?" And I said, "So you're familiar with the site, thewhonet?" And he said, "Yeah, man, it's the Bible." So Scott Smith is here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So this has just kind of turned into a Who show, which is kind of what I'm most comfortable talking about at the time. And I might branch off in the future. Last time we had Quadrophenia here. It was all of my memorabilia up here, and it got to be too much, so I'm going with a virtual background now.
I thought about going with the virtual background, but
why not? I mean, I got it. I could do it every time for every album. I just, it seemed to be too much. And this was last minute. And I really appreciate you coming on. I know time is hard sometimes to get away.
Yep.
Okay.
By the way, I did listen to your show, and you guys did a terrific job. So.
Yeah. It was like the day after we have this weird Who wife connection, I think. And the day after we're like, we just like doing that. Let's just do albums next. So, we're meeting in a couple of weeks. We're going to do Endless Wire, and then we're just going to go randomly.
There you go.
I've created a spinning wheel that'll pick it for us. And so I'm hoping we get a little bit more critical because we started with Quadrophenia, and we have nothing bad to say about it.
It's hard to go wrong with starting with Quadrophenia. So.
Totally. But the reason why I wanted to ask you and why it triggered for Quadrophenia is because kind of the who.net, I remember it being my first connection to the outside world of other Who fans. I grew up about 10 to 15 years too late. In my high school, it was all Green Day and whatever was going on at the time. And in 1989, I saw that special, the Universal Amphitheater special. And from then on, it was nothing but the Who for me.
I understand that.
And so before I get into more Quad and why, that was such a big deal, I want to know, because people have always asked me why, they would always ask me why the Who, because I would wear it everywhere. It would be an identity for me. So let's start there for you. How did you find them? That's almost the exact button. Why is it the Who for you, and how did you find them? Like when?
It was summer mid 77, and I don't remember which song, but I heard one of their classic hits on the radio, and I remember a day or two later I went to the record store and described the song that I heard to the record store guy, and he said, "Oh, you need to buy this," and turned me on to the My Generation Magic Bus double LP, which I quickly took home, and within a day or a few days later, I was back at the record store to buy the other double LP that they had, and within short order, a month or two at most, I had their entire collection, and there was no turning back.
And that was in 1977?
Yeah, it was mid 77.
And, that must have been a huge bummer when Keith went right then.
Yeah, it because I was already a big fan, I had known enough about Keith to know that probably was inevitable. So while incredibly sad and tragic, it was also not unexpected.
And did you hit the touring up pretty hard when they seemed to drown their depression kind of in going harder, going touring with Kenny Jones? Did you go to any of those?
I saw him in 80 and 82, both in Houston. Saw those two.
Right on. That's for another show. I'm going to ask about those at some point.
Okay.
I want to hear all about them.
I can talk about shows for a while, but
Well, I do want to go to Quad because this thing was happening. I found them in 1989, and I never thought I'd be able to see them. It was 1994, and I think, Pete had made one of those statements like, it's never happening. Stop asking. We're going to do Rogers radio, but we're not going to be on stage together. It's never going to happen, right? So I got to go see Ringo and the All-Star Band, and that's when I saw John Entwistle, and I lost my mind in Wolf Trap, Virginia. And I heard that they were going to do Quad in 96, and I don't know what happened first, if it was the website or Quadrophenia or whatever it was. I don't remember. They're all kind of in my brain together.
Right.
But
well, we actually didn't start the website until after the Madison Square Garden shows.
Okay.
That's when Odds and Sods started, and it was the following year that I actually started the Who.net. So 97 was the start of the Who.net.
And I remember those TED shirts, right?
Yeah.
Right. I was lucky enough to see Quad at 96 at Madison Square Garden. It was like my first Who concert. It was.
Did you go to Molly Wee beforehand?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say perhaps we met there because I was at a couple of those shows as well.
Well, I was 16, and my grandma took me up on the train. She went to go see Jackie Mason, and she let me go see the Who. That's how that happens.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Great.
So I guess I found the website after that, after getting the internet, dialing up on AOL, and finding the Who web ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I remember that.
And just I just finding the Who web ring, then finding your site, which was kind of the most accessible. It had everything, and I'm going to ask you way more about Who tabs in a little bit because that's a big one for me.
That's someone else, but we'll have to introduce you to him sometime.
Okay. If it's litgo at AOL.com.
Yep.
I don't know if I can meet him. He might be on Pete's level for me. I've worked so much with his stuff that, it's unreal. It's literally my most visited webpage ever.
I can understand that. If I were a guitar player, I'd probably visit more, and I still visit a lot. So
yeah. But I just keep rambling here because I'm excited to have you here. I just want to hear about starting the website and that kind of thing, and how your idea evolved from those shows to doing it.
Well, it was actually the mailing group came first. Odds and Sods, the Who's Internet Fan Club came first. And it started simply because there was another list that a lot of people were on that they started instituting rules randomly. Oh, you can only post so much in a certain day or whatever. I don't even remember what the rules were that pissed me off so much, but at the Molly Wee, we had a gathering from that other group at the Molly Wee across the street from Madison Square Gardens, and we all started talking about how really we didn't need that list. We could start our own. And I happened to run a server in my little home office at the time. And so I started a mailing list. And I was a surfer just like everybody else. And I used to go to the Hypertext 2 and some other sites. And they were all dormant. Nobody had done anything with them already in 96, 97. They had already been dormant for 2+ years. And so I went to the webmasters of those and said, hey, would you like somebody to take those over for you? I can combine these multiple sites into one bigger site and give us all what we're looking for, celebrating the Who. So that's how it all came about. About a year, 6 to 9 months after I started Odds and Sods, I finally got the web domain and started the site.
Now that tradition of rulemaking in Who groups, it continues, and it's every once in a while I get really fed up and quit them all, and then come back at some point. And
well, I don't believe in rules beyond being human. Be nice, be kind. I've relaunched the Odds and Sods on Facebook, and my only rules are just don't be mean to each other. And other than that, talk about the Who and don't be mean to each other. Other than that, there's no real rules. Talk about anything you want. If you don't like the Who, that's okay. I don't like everything they've done. It's okay.
This is an argument that not an argument, but it seems to be an ongoing thing in these groups, because I think loving something means being able to talk about what you don't like about it.
I agree completely. There are things that can frustrate me, and there are things I don't talk about that I don't need to share. I'm one of those that say, if you don't have something nice to say nothing. So if you bring up a topic and I don't say anything, you can pretty much guess what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that's how I would like it to be. I've blasted the Quadrophenia review over every Facebook page I can find, and I've only gotten one negative thing said, so I think I'm doing okay.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I've been running the Facebook, the Who.net page now for 3 years, and I get negative feedback all the time. But without it, I don't know how I'm doing. So it's okay if people say, some people say I post too much. Okay. You don't have to visit. Thank you.
I was excited when I realized that I could also, like, not with people, but with pages, see it first. And so the Who.net is my see it first.
Thank you.
Because I remember it. And I remember being a lot in the chat room, and I met some people. I don't want to mention anyone because it's the internet. You don't want to mention.
You can mention G Bastard. It's okay.
No, he's one I will mention, because he took me under his Who wing. You know what I mean? And we kind of lived close. And Sarah from the Midwest, who lives in Seattle now, and the three of us became pretty close there. And in fact, I've seen her every 5 to 10 years just to randomly go to a Who concert or something. And the last time we went, we saw Quadrophenia in Philadelphia. She just flew out randomly, and we went. So, I mean, and that doesn't happen unless there's a Who.net. You know what I mean?
There you go. Well, I can tell you a Who.net story that is almost unbelievable.
Okay.
If you'd like to hear it.
I love it. Yeah.
In 1998, there was a convention in London, and I had been unemployed for a few months before that event happened, and had just literally weeks before gotten a job. And so I had no money. I was flat broke. And Mr. G Bastard said, "You're not going?" And I said, I really can't. And he said, "What if I help you go?" And I said, "I'm not one to turn down help." So he sent me enough to pay for an airplane ticket to and from London from Texas. And I got on a plane and spent, I forget, 20 some odd hours on a plane, got to London, was in London for a total of 50 hours, and turned around and flew back so I could get back to work. During that 50 hours, however, I hung out with a bunch of people that were from the chat room and from the odds and sods. And one of them was a girl from Brazil. And we met on September 5th, 1998 at the Who convention. And 9 years later, we got married in Brazil. And I've been here 12 years now. So it's because of the Who.net and odds and sods that this happened.
I mean, I didn't know that story, and that's an amazing story. And I would compliment G Bastard more if I knew that if he ever listened to it, his ears would burn and he would pretend it didn't happen. He doesn't take
I blame him often.
Yeah. That's when I posted the other day. I said, the scars are still there. From him. He took me to, I'm just going to sing his praises for a minute because he deserves it.
He does.
Went to a bunch of shows. And depending on the show, I paid for a couple, but he would always get a bunch of tickets. The last time Simon Townsend was on tour in Virginia, I showed up and he had a ticket for me. I saw Simon Townsend and John Entwistle with him in DC. We've seen Ani DeFranco together. He took me to my first Ani DeFranco show. So I have nothing but love for that man. He won't let you show it, but I have nothing but love for that man.
And he'll call us names later for talking.
He'll call you names later, and totally. Yeah. Yeah, and I just remember being in those chat rooms, and I was young and dumb, and I made some stupid mistakes in that chat room as well. but I begged forgiveness. I was 18 or something.
I can't imagine what you did, but I don't know that I want to know.
Oh no, it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's move on.
Is that where the scars come from?
Yes. No.
Okay.
There aren't actually scars. He didn't actually beat me up. He actually taught me a lot about going to shows. Seen a lot of Simon Townsend with him, actually. A lot of Simon Townsend. And that's the other thing, the Who.net opens you up to, the offshoots of the Who. I mean, the Emma Townsend CDs and the Simon Townsend CDs and things like that. So I do want to talk about, again, thank you for the website, because I don't know how many members do you have on Facebook now?
We're approaching 50,000 followers, 36,000 likes. So doing pretty well as far as I'm concerned. As I always say, it's something I would do if there were one person or 50,000. I'm going to do it anyway because I like it. The Facebook thing actually started because it's a long story, but I can try to shrink it down a little bit. From the time I moved to Brazil in 2007, I then had a child in 2010. And so from 2007 to 2013 or so, I really didn't have any time for the Who.net. It was sort of the child that I had to leave dormant. Right. And so it didn't get any love whatsoever from me. It still had other webmasters doing things, which I wholly appreciate, such as Who Tabs has been updated virtually all the time for years. There's somebody there watching over it.
I mean, that Endless Wire stuff was up so fast. I was so happy. Anyway,
there you go.
Yeah.
The bootleg section, the book section have other webmasters that take care of them. So it got love, but just not from me because I had too many other things going on.
Sure.
And in 2015, I took my wife and my child to the United States to go see the Who at Jazz Fest. And of course, that sort of reinvigorated the desire to get back involved in doing things with the site and with the Who other than just listening. Because I listen to the Who all the time anyway. But it got me more motivated, and it took a little time because I still had a young child and we were thinking about expanding our family. But in 2017, after another child and more possible shows coming up in 2017 for us, I decided I was going to take a good long look, and every night I stayed up till the wee hours of the morning updating parts of the website, parts that I'm not going to talk about right now because there's still secret stuff going on.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things that I immediately realized needed a lot of work was Today in History. I've had that feature since the beginning. And it came from the original data that I had inherited when I took over the Hypertext 2. And I love Brian Cady's The Who This Month, and I have read it faithfully since he started. I host that website on my server because I just adore it. It is my favorite website on the internet. I read it religiously, virtually every day. I go and look for facts that I might have missed or that he's updated and I didn't think about. Anyway, I realized that mine needed updating. And so I spent a year going through every single day of the Who history through the concert file, anyway, anyhow, anywhere, and Brian Cady's website, digging out every piece of date and compiling it in a database and getting it ready. And when I thought I was ready to get the website updated and ready, I started the Facebook page. And I was doing it just to get some advertising for the website.
Sure.
And it kind of became the obsession of, wow, now I really want every day to have multiple pictures, items, so let me find everything. And I've spent the last 3 years literally getting everything there is to get about the daily history of the Who.
Now, I do have a question about that written down, and I wanted to ask you that. Because Facebook has these memories, does that make it easier? Because
No.
no, it doesn't, like, say you did this a year ago, so it's the same thing that happened October 3rd happened October 3rd.
Well, yes and no. 2 years ago, I posted everything I knew at the time. Last year, I posted everything I knew at the time. Now, I do refer back to what was posted last year, but again, I do have it all in a database now, an online database, in fact, but I do refer back to last year's posts, but usually there's at least 5 or 6 new things virtually every day that I didn't post last year because either I didn't know about it, I didn't have an image to go with it, because you'll notice I don't post anything that I can't add something to it.
Right.
A picture or a newspaper article, something to give it presence.
Right.
Otherwise, I just let it go. It's in the daily overview today in Who story, but this year I'm on average, right now I'm posting about 8 to 10, 11 items per day. Last year it was 4 or 5.
Okay.
So it does help that it's there from last year, but I've got it all in a database and it's growing so fast that it's hard to keep up sometimes.
And I have to say the truth, I haven't read the This Day in Who story in a long time, just because, some things repeat, some things are interesting. It all depends on how you're feeling any Who day. You know what I mean?
As I say every day, the website isn't for everybody. The Facebook page isn't for everybody. It takes a lot for me to do it. I spend literally an hour a night posting all the stuff, getting it ready for the next day. But I spend 2 to 3 hours researching and looking for more stuff to add to it virtually every day. My wife and kids often say that, the Who is more important than them. It's not true, but I understand why they would say it. But I can imagine that on average, there's only about 1,000 out of that 35 to 50,000 that actually read Today in Who story. It's redundant and long.
Yeah, wife, kids, whatever. My son's middle name is Townsend.
There you go.
And
my wife wouldn't let me name my daughters Pete. I couldn't understand.
I just started naming every name first, middle, last with the name we had picked out for him. So I started with Keith John Moon. So I said his name, John, and I just went through every name. She said, Townsend doesn't sound, and I was like, that's it. It's over. Middle name, Townsend. You know what I mean?
There you go.
I will tell you a great story. It's not a Who.net, but it is a Who life cycle story. My son was born in 2012. And of course, I brought him up to like certain things. And I was able to take him last year to the show in Virginia.
Ah, good.
The Moving On show. And, he's 8 years old and he's sitting there and it's starting to rain and everything. And I'm being a horrible father by saying, well, we're sitting here and we're going to do this, because it gets to that part in the show where it's like, we all love The Rock, but it's not what the 7-year-old Who fan is going for, right? And I know Bob O'Reilly's at the end. And, we got to that part and he just exploded. I have video. I've done the full cycle. I got to take him to the show. So happy. That's my life cycle Who story. But
I like I say, in 2015, 2015, we took our then 4-year-old to see the Who at Jazz Fest, and then my wife and I went to a couple more shows in Texas. But this year we were going to go back to Jazz Fest, and of course this came along because I really wanted to take my now 4-year-old daughter along with her older sister to go to Jazz Fest. But
I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll see them again.
I will never say never again.
Well, yeah. It's something you learn, because I've prepared myself. In 2006, before he came along, that's when I spent all the money. I went to all the shows. I went to all 3 Madison Square Gardens. I went to Pimlico Raceway. I went to Philadelphia for the first show. In 2004, I went to California in Mountain View, and in Quadrophenia, I saw 3 or 4 times. I saw that Madison Square Garden like special cancer benefit show, and
That's cool.
This will just be me saying, let's get to the important things. Let's talk about the Who tabs just for a second.
Okay.
Was
I'm not the expert on it.
Well, was it there when you got there, or was it there after you got there?
Who tabs wasn't, there were tabs on the Hypertext 2. It wasn't near as extensive. And then Litgau decided, he said, I'd like to do this. And I said, by all means. The reason I chose the who.net, it was always intended to be a network of webmasters providing the information. It wasn't, I never wanted it just to be me. There was Brian Cady originally did the news section before he started the Today in History thing, and then he started his own site, which, like I said, I host, the Who This Month. But it was always intended to be a network. So when Litgau took over, it was like, thank you, and he's gone full steam ahead. I personally love his equipment pages. I go through them all the time.
And is he still doing it? The same person?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to show this cool little thing in 2007. It's the only thing I ever wanted. All put together, Eric Clapton Strat, all modified with the parts list that I found on Who tabs.
No, there you go.
For Pete's. The only thing that's not like Pete is this is more of a Eric Clapton color than his actual red, but it's got the exact same pickup, the exact same tuners.
Cool.
This is the thing I love more than my child. No, I told you.
Yeah, don't tell him that.
He knows. He knows. He's good with it. So now I did notice for a while you were doing watch parties, but they've fallen off a little bit.
Well, it's partially because of the quarantine. I should be doing them more, but the problem is I really don't get much free time with 2 kids at home. The wife is working at home. I always did those when they were out.
Right.
So I had time to be able to crank up the stereo and watch Who videos with a bunch of Who freaks. And it's something I actually, it's something I miss a lot, but I have to put my priorities, kids first and wife first, and that's one of the sacrifices I'm willing to make. I still spend the hours a day getting research done and getting the website posted, the Facebook posted, but the watch party because it's hours at a time, and I can't get anything else done during that time. So
I think my wife thought she had made it out, but then this thing happened with me starting to talk about the albums, and she's like, okay, we're back here again.
Right.
She doesn't want to hear about it anymore. That's their cross to bear. They love us. They have to love the band.
They put up with us anyway.
So, I mean, you already said you do have plans for the future, so I don't want to ask about that because you say things are under wraps.
Well, the software that I have used to run the who.net is the same software that I was using 20 plus years ago. And in 2017, I started to make some pretty serious revisions to the data, the front end of the website, and everything I did broke.
Oh, no.
It broke something else. It was like I'd be doing this over here, and suddenly that over there went haywire. And after about a year and a half of pulling my teeth trying to make it work right, I started doing research on different backends, content management systems. And I found that the one I use is really not used very much anymore, and there's a reason for it. So I invested a lot of time and energy researching a better way of doing things, and have found that. And it took a good year to get everything moved over to the new system. because it's a one-man operation. It's just me, and I have only a certain amount of time during the day, and
No one's giving you any heat for that. Okay.
I don't.
We're grateful. You know.
Even if they do, what good does it do you?
Right.
I'm still only one guy.
Right.
So, but it all started this revision thing based on one thing that I wanted to do, and I spent literally 6 months, 3 hours, 4 hours a night, every night when my wife and baby would go to bed. I'd stay up till 3, 4 in the morning researching one particular thing on every single show. And it took me...
Can you tell me what that was? Months. What was the thing you were researching?
Sure. No, I'll say, because anybody else who's crazy enough to try to do it would be stupid. But right. I located 99% of all the venues that the Who have ever played at and put it all in the longitude and latitude so that I can map every show they played. So when you pull up a web page about the show, you'll see a map of where that venue was and a picture of the venue where pictures exist. So it was a very tedious, long process to figure out. And there's some holes in the data because the venue's been gone for 50 years. So right. Nowhere on the internet could I find a place that said, oh, that venue is at that place. But most all venues, I have the fairly exact location. So and that was my start. And I did it just for me.
And this is what you have to understand. It's like, thank God for the internet, because there was no one that was feeling about this band. And I'm sure it's all bands everywhere, but there was no one who was feeling about this band where I was. And there still isn't really, you know what I mean? I have yet to find people that are crazy about it. I found Tom and, you know, he's got a whole life and and this is all we talk about is when we get together and we talk about, and our brains are on the same wavelength when it comes to that. We were like, I texted him and I said, we have to talk about Real Good Looking Boy when we do Endless Wire, because that's kind of in the same thing. He's like, I was just about to tell you that. So, you know, and he said your website was the Bible. It's a great resource. We appreciate what you do. But I do want to hear about some shows.
Okay.
Because I do remember one exchange I had with you maybe 20 years ago about how I thought, this is where it gets really thick, people, if you're still here, thanks. The solos on I Can't Explain on the 69-70 tours. And I forgot what I said and I forgot what you said. One of us was, I thought every solo was pretty much started the same. And you were like, no, I've heard the tapes. They're all different.
I like to think that there are differences in every show, in every solo, every note, while they're the same song and the same note in the same sense that all music is the same. I think that they all have their singular moment that makes them different.
I got into a pretty robust conversation on the who.net the other day about the DVD for the Isle of Wight and how much I love the CD for it, but the video, I don't think. I never wanted to be a critic that said they shouldn't do that, but I don't think they should have made that DVD because the whole second half is chopped up.
Yeah, I'll disagree with that all day long.
Okay.
Only because, partially because my hearing is shot.
Okay.
I am much more likely to put on any DVD these days. Now, 20 years ago, I listened to every bootleg that ever existed. Now, I am a little more discerning on what I'll put on, and I'm much more likely to watch a video simply because my eyes are better than my ears.
I've always gone for videos. And I was just thinking about this because I was watching a 2000 show, West Palm Beach or something, before you came on. And I was thinking what I'd have to do, this is maybe my old man talk now, about what I would have to do to get one of those shows in 1997 or
Yeah, no,
but to get bootlegs.
it was a much different world, that's for sure. We used to trade tapes by mail, and a lot of the time you didn't get what you asked for or what you expected. It was, I remember, for me, I started collecting bootlegs in 1983 because I met somebody in college that was into bootlegs, and he had a huge collection, mainly Hendrix and other stuff, but he had a fairly significant collection of Who stuff, and he became my best friend because of it. It was, "You've got that? Oh my God, I got to hear that." And immediately I started collecting, going to all the record conventions and going through the magazines and finding people who had lists, and they would send you their list, and you'd send them what you had, a list of what you had, and do it via mail. And it was an obsession to get everything. And the first time he had a bunch of videos when I first met him, not a lot, but quite a few. And I used to watch them all the time. And when I started trading other people around the country for videos, they'd always say, "Oh, I've got the best of this particular video." And so I always made, I have a box in my parents' house in Houston. I left it there when I moved, thinking someday I'd get it. But I have a box of Cleveland 75 videos that everybody sent me, saying, "Oh, I have the best. I have the," might be Chicago.
Are they all different?
They're virtually the same, but everyone said that theirs was the best pristine copy. But again, you got to remember, it was VHS days, so most people got it third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation, 10th generation. So, but I used to use that as a comparison. I'd say, "Send me yours. I'll send you mine, my best." And then I could tell what kind of trader they were. If they'd said it was great and it turned out to be junk, I wouldn't bother trading with them anymore. So I used one particular show as the guide to weather trading, but it was not like today. Now you can go get the entire bootleg collection in a matter of days, downloading it off torrents. So it's a much easier world.
Well, you know, when I came on, they smelled blood in the water because I was so thirsty for it, right? And it's kind of one of the things that turned me off to bootleg like culture then in general, was just the, like, you know, 10 blanks for one kind of thing.
Yeah, I never dealt with people who did that kind of stuff, because if you're not willing to trade me relatively even, I understood when I was new and had nothing on my list, I didn't mind sending some blanks to people, but that didn't last long.
Yeah. No, and I have things, and I still remember my favorite bootleg as Edmonton Sundown 1973. To me, was like, when I got that, I was never more happy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Do you remember the Long Live Rock website?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how quickly, like, Pete had to take away his support from that. I think, like, I understand.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing that it's not legal, and I understand that. But hey, I'm going to buy everything that the Who put out.
Right.
I'm going to spend the money, so it hurts you none me downloading all that I can get, because I do it.
Yeah, sure. I do too. And how did you feel, like, what year did eelpie.com come out? Do you remember?
No, because of what I do every day with kids, I can't even remember my own birth date. So
one of my friends said Pete Townsend was on the Daily Show and he talked about you tonight. I said, "What are you talking about?" And then I went and I saw it, and he was talking to John Stewart about how they were getting so many hits a day. They thought it was amazing. It was 10,000 hits a day or whatever it was, but it was the same 400 people.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, "Oh, he did talk about me. Okay, cool."
I've actually got that with the Facebook thing. I have 35,000 likes and I have 50,000 followers, but the stuff only goes out to a certain number of people because of the way Facebook works. And I actually think there's probably about 600 of you guys that click like every single time. And that's okay with me.
It's a pretty big rush when your concert of the day is something I've been to, and it's happened quite a bit. So, that's fun.
Yep. That and albums get a lot of likes. For some reason, you guys like to click on, today this album went platinum. Okay, cool.
No, and
the things that most interest me are some of the obscure newspaper stuff, and they get like 30 likes, and I'm just like, what are you guys thinking? This was the cool thing. This is a cool thing I didn't know. When I found it, I almost peed my pants. I was so excited. And you guys, I got 34 likes. Hey.
Well, I mean, and everybody's different. My main thing is, like, I like to see weird collectible things.
Right.
And there's a page I belong to for that. And,
of course.
and
I like to see it. I can't afford it.
Well, certain things I get really upset about, like I didn't know existed, like a hologram Roger Daltrey necklace from like a 70s like magazine.
See, I've got newspaper ads that talk about that, so I knew that existed.
I got a Who's Next pewter paperweight with pewter carved pea stains in it, so stuff like that.
Funny enough, I've never actually been a collector. I love the Who, and I've researched the Who, and I obviously own stuff, but I'm not a collector. I don't go out of my way. I was just telling somebody today that I really do wish I had started collecting picture sleeves when I lived in America and was younger, had more disposable cash, because I love them. I think they're great to look at, and I really wish I could have some up on this nice blank wall I have here. But it was never a passion of mine to collect things. If I didn't go to the show, I don't really need memorabilia from those shows. Now, because of the website, I love to collect ticket stubs, for example. I got literally, I've got 1,000 of them, probably. Newspaper articles, I've got a review for virtually every show in 82, 89. I go out and search those out because it's a passion to get the information, but I'm not a collector per se.
I'm such a collector that I said I'm only going to collect Who things, because if I start collecting other things, that'll sprawl. And so I only collected Who things. And I see people with, the corners of their house have all this stuff. My stuff is everywhere. There's bottle openers, face masks now. I got tons of things.
Yeah, I actually don't. I mean, I have some stuff here, and when I'm building a house now, and when I finish that house, I plan on putting up posters and having more of my stuff in a place. But I really, books, I have most every book I've ever found. Posters, I have posters for 5 or 7 shows I've been to, and I never really collected singles. I have their entire collection,
right?
But I don't go out and buy picture sleeves. I didn't. Like I say, I regret it now. But I don't have a turntable right now, so.
Well, I mean, you don't really want to play the picture sleeve anyway. I mean,
right.
Really.
But I mean, I do have a stack of singles, but I haven't listened to them in more than 20 years.
I have a Pink Floyd The Wall picture disc down there, and I played it once, and it was Metallica's Black Album under it. You know what I mean? So I only have a Who Are You one, and I haven't played it. And I have some album bootlegs, not too many.
I have quite a few of those, but again, they didn't make the move to Brazil, so I still own them.
Right. Yeah.
Someday I will get those.
And this, I don't want to turn this into the I have this, I have that, because it could probably go on forever and ever, even though I love it. What is of the concerts you've seen, of the tours you've seen, I'm sure you've seen every tour since 77.
I missed a couple. I first saw them in 1980, and then I moved here in 2007. Between 2007 and 2015, I didn't get to go because I lived here. Traveling back to the United States is a little more expensive than the concert tickets. Whenever I hear people complain about the price of concert tickets, I just laugh.
Right.
Like, yeah, you've got it real tough, don't you? For me, it costs a bunch of money just to get to the show. The ticket's inconsequential.
For moving on for the Philadelphia show, they made every ticket like $20, like inside the stadium. That's why I bought a ticket, but then my brother wanted to go, so we just bought 2 more somewhere else. It was very lucky, but it was an amazing, amazing, gathering of people.
Right. I would have liked to have seen that. I didn't get to see that tour, so.
Well, you still might get a chance to.
Like I said, I was going to go in this last year and see, and this came up this year. I was going to go to 3 shows, I guess.
So out of the ones you have, out of the tours you have seen, what's been your favorite experience?
Well, experience or
or set list, or just or best couple concerts.
It's so. I've never seen a bad Who show.
Right.
Some probably other people would rate lower or whatever. For me, just going into the same arena, same stadium, same shed as the Who are playing is just such a thrill. I have seen the Who, the first time I saw the Who in 1980 at the Houston Summit, I was in the upper deck.
Mm-hmm.
It changed my life just being in that same arena. In 1989, I saw 2 shows in New Jersey, 2 shows in Oakland, and then the 2 shows in Texas. And one of the shows in Oakland, I was at the very top of Oakland Stadium, and that's a football stadium. I was further away from the Who than I have ever been. And it was one of the best times of my life.
That G bastard, he will not talk to you if you're not in the front row.
Yeah, I have some very dear friends that they've seen hundreds, well, more than 100 shows. I haven't seen 100 shows, and they've seen more than 100, and most of them on the front row. I've seen the Who on the front row. I've been in the first 5 or 10 rows many times, but I've also been really happy just to be in the same stadium. So
yes, yeah. I mean, being in the room is great. The first time I saw Madison Square Garden, the Quadrophenia thing, I never thought I was going to see him again. You got Phil Daniels there reading the narration. You got that big band. I mean, it didn't matter where I was. I was just happy to be there.
If you asked me, which you did, those were some of my favorite shows simply because Quadrophenia means so much to me. It is by far my favorite album, not just of the Who, but of all time. If I went to a desert island, that would be the album. I have listened to Quadrophenia. Some people, I've listened to it 50 times. I've listened to it 50 times in a month. And on an average month, I will listen to it 10 or more times. It is my go-to. It is on my phone, my computer, it's everywhere I am. I have Quadrophenia handy. So I used to, in the mid-90s, my friends had bands that would play in other cities. And in Texas, city is far away. So 3-4 hour drive to Houston, 4-hour drive to Dallas, couple-hour drive to San Antonio, and drive to New Orleans. It's 8 hours. I'd be the guy who drove home. The band would all go to bed. I'd put on Quadrophenia, and I would listen to it and drive all night long to get us to the next town. And it was all because of Quadrophenia.
Me and Tom feel the same way about that album, and we were doing research to talk about it. And it's like, why we're doing research for something we've heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And I brought out every single version of Quadrophenia I had. The one behind you, the bootlegs, the excerpts from the ones in the 70s, symphonic DVD, just all of it. I listened to it. I went to a friend's house and borrowed their 5.1 and listened to that one. It doesn't get old. It's my favorite album of all time. It means so much to me. I was intimidated by it. I didn't read it. If you watch the thing, you heard me say that. I was intimidated by it because it was big black and white album. And I was young and I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Give me this one single album that has, Bob O'Reilly on it for a while. But when I got into Quadrophenia, you couldn't take it away, and you still can't take it away. It is my favorite album.
No, people always say, "Oh, I like it." A lot of people like Quad. I think we're not alone. But a lot of people say, "Oh, Tommy, Who's Next?" For me, there is no comparison. I like those albums a lot. I listen to them. I don't listen to Who's Next very often at all, to be honest. I have 3 or 4 tracks on a best of that I listen to quite regularly, but if I never heard Bob O'Reilly again, I'd be okay. Maybe it's because I listened to it too much early on, but I don't need that song ever again. Won't Get Fooled Again.
I'm good.
Great song. It's a masterpiece, but I don't need to hear it ever again, and I'll be happy. Quadrophenia, on the other hand, I've listened to as much or more. There's not a song on it that I would ever do without.
And I tend to agree with you. I remember that, that little clock radio you'd have that would only fast forward. You know what I mean? One of those tapes.
Uh-huh.
And I had, Who's Next with that for a very long time. That's why a separate section that we're going to do is not, we're doing Who's Next, of course, but then we're just going to be doing the singles and B-sides from around Who's Next, which I think might be, Pure and Easy and Naked Eye, and that's
a lot of good stuff.
That's where I live. And my number one crowning achievement is the last time I went, not the last time, but the Who Hits 50 tour. The second show I went to see, Pete's voice was a little out. And so they didn't do Eminence Front, and they did Slip Kid.
Ah, there you go.
And I don't think I've ever been happier. And I was in the 4th row, and I think Roger smiled at me. And that's all the fangirling I can do tonight. I want to talk to you again. I want to talk to you later. Hopefully you'll come back if we do another album to get some more thoughts. I don't know if you had a good time. I really enjoyed having you here. I really enjoyed talking to you about this.
I'm glad you gave me a chance. I appreciate it.
Maybe we can be the video of the day one day. I'll let you decide that.
No, I doubt it.
Okay.
I'm not into self-promotion that much. Now, I will go ahead and promote your doing this, and we'll put it on the page and see if we can't get some of those 30 to 50,000 people to come watch you talk.
That's great, but like I said, if just like with the Whonet, if it was just me and Tom talking and you catch it every once in a while, honestly, we'd be really happy doing that. We're doing it because we all, like you do it because we have this need to talk about this thing we love, because they've given us so much and they've given us an identity. And they've made it easier for me in the world. So. Yep.
It's something that affected me young and never stopped affecting me. Their music and the way they make me feel makes me a happy person. So if I can share my happiness, and it's what I do.
All right, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you later.